Start recording. So when you guys are looking at your NERIS incidents on your incidents page, and we're going to go over the end user before we go over the back office portion. And I'm using a test database just to show the examples because this has already been built out and it'll make more sense as you go through. And I'll cover the back office portion too. But essentially, whatever filters you guys have applied here, what you're going to see. Okay, so this filter that's been applied is for the last 24 hours. You can change those aspects in your back office of what you see when and how it's populating. You can do that through your web settings in the management tab in the back. If you don't want to see this, of course, you can click X on that and you can create your own filters as well. So what I mean by that is if I click on the filters button here, we can go through and decide what the time frame is. So if I wanted to say, hey, it's the last 7 days, if it's whatever. Now, before I do that, if I want to save this filter, I can hit new filter and just name this, my filter or whatever. Or if you guys are QCing, if you guys are going to be doing the quality control on this, I could name this my quality control filter or whatever. And I could, instead of doing last 7 days, I could do it for, this year, this month, last year, I'll say last 30 days. As far as the rest of that goes, we're going to talk about the different modes or statuses that things can be in. As you see here, there's incident status, there's all incidents, there's draft, completed, approved. Not approved is what you guys are going to want for that QC. Okay. So I can go ahead, I created that filter. Again, I'll hit check. That's it. And now I've saved it. So everything that I've made in here has now saved. Okay. So if I hit search, it's only going to bring up the ones that are in draft, that have been completed, reopened, or that's essentially it from this point forward. Now, what we're looking at too is if we want to talk about the statuses. So the statuses are as follows that we have. Now you can create your own QC statuses. We'll talk about that as well. But essentially what we have is draft, completed, approved, canceled, and reopened. Okay. What draft means is that either A, the CAD has pushed the event through and you're starting to see, hey, this is, the event has started. Here's the address. Here's where we're being dispatched to, all that good information. But either A, no one has entered any information into it. It's just the CAD push that's come through. Or B, they put some information in it to start filling the report out, but they haven't completed it yet. Okay. So when we're looking at a difference between what is completed and what is, um, essentially draft, they have to go through and satisfy NERIS. Okay. So that being said, if I click on just a random incident, and I'm going to switch this over to NERIS real quick, they'll have to satisfy all the errors that are within NERIS. How do you look at those? When you go up here and you hit validate incident, this is going to tell you all the errors that need to be filled out. Okay. Now, there's a difference between errors and warnings. An error is going to be in red, and there will be a red box around that area, or it will have a red mark on it. Like it's saying this has to be primary or whatever. So you'll start seeing red marks and or red boxes around the fields that have to be filled out, like this one. Okay. Warnings have to be satisfied. That means something, or I'm sorry, an error has to be satisfied. It means something has got to be put in that field in order for this to submit to NERIS. Warnings do not. Warning will be orange, and essentially what they're saying is, and if you guys are familiar with NIFRs, it's the same concept. But if there is a warning, it's saying you don't have to fill it out, but they're recommending that you probably should. Okay. Not saying that they'll kick it back, but they may. All right. And that's how that works from that standpoint. So if you were to complete an incident and I come over here to complete and we have errors, it will not let you complete it. And saying, nope, can't do it. Okay, you got to satisfy these things in red before you can actually go through and complete this report. You can view the same thing in validate incident. Validate incident is just showing you if there's any errors before you complete it. That's it, in warnings. That's all that's going to do. All right, so if we wanted to move this over to completed status, you would have to satisfy those errors in order for it to move to completed status. What approved means is an incident that has been completed. So someone has gone through and they have filled out the entire incident. Okay. So the report writer has gone in, they filled it out, they've submitted it as complete. Now, the QCer's job is to come in and make sure that everything is correct. Okay. So if I come over here and I change, let's say I change one of these filters and I add in, only the reports that have been completed. Okay. So we'll go to completed and we'll hit search. So the QCer's function now is to come into this report, and I have to switch it back to NERIS. You guys, if you're on straight NERIS, you won't have to worry about it. Their job is to come in here, read over it, and now hit approve. Okay. Once it is approved, it will automatically go to NERIS. Okay. In times past with NIFRs, it would not do that. It would submit all the incidents at the very end, okay, or at the end of a time period. Usually it was on the 10th of every month. You would be able to see incidents that have been sent, and you would get receipts for them. So that's not the case anymore. We actually have a form or a report in the BI that will show you on whether a report has been sent or not, and if it's been rejected or not. So from now on, that is something that you guys can schedule in the BI if you want to do that. If you remember how to do that, that's in the report generator to schedule it, but I'll show you the report real quick. Just so you know, if you just come over here to this search and type in NERIS, you'll see incidents which failed transmission. So if at any point in time they failed, you'll be able to see that. Okay. So if I run that report, it's going to see all the ones that never got submitted to them. Okay. Or if it failed for any reason. Now, if there's something else that flags it, like another, something got updated and, the federal government decided they wanted a new field, you would obviously see that. It would tell you it was failed, and you could actually go back to validate the incident, and that would now be an error. Okay. But that's not the case. It doesn't happen super often or anything like that. It's just as they iron this stuff out, it may be something to pay attention to from there, because unfortunately it's the federal government and carts before the horse sometimes. Okay. So that's kind of how that all works. So again, the statuses are going to be as follows: draft completed, which means the report writer has come in, filled it out. Approved means that you have uh, sent it off to NERIS, and now you're just waiting for them to come back and say that it's good. Okay. If you filled out everything, it should be fine. All right. Unless there's some conflict with, like, hey, the address changed to a whole different area or whatever, which you can reflect that in the report itself as well. Canceled. So if you generate an incident to test, like a test incident to kind of play around with, you can cancel incidents at any point in time if you have the permissions to do so. Okay. So what that means is if I come into this NERIS incident and I want to cancel it, I can come over here to these three dots and cancel the incident. We never fully delete it. Okay. In case you ever have to pull that back out, it will live in canceled. Okay. You have to actually search for that event in your filters or by that status, by the canceled, in order to pull that out. So, what I mean by that is if I go back and I go to my filters and I go down to my canceled statuses, I will be able to see that. All right. Now, if you reopen it, there is an option to reopen, and what that looks like is if I go back and I do the completed, or if it's even in approved, you can reopen an approved incident. It will remove it from the NIFRs. I'm sorry, the NERIS transmission. But essentially, what will happen is if I'm about to approve this and I decide to reopen it because something is wrong, I can reopen it and I can say, why are you reopening this incident? And I could say, hey, needs correction for narrative. Let's say there's some spelling wrong. Okay. And I'll reopen it. All right. So that's going to be part of your log now. All right. So wherever you reopen this for whatever reason, that is part of your log. We'll go through that in a little bit. I don't want to jump too far ahead on this. So I just wanted to show you what those statuses mean and what you can do. And whatever happens, this little old school rotator light we used to have on the old engines and ladders and everything else, that will reflect what it is. So for instance, if I go back to those incidents and I'm looking at those statuses, like purple is reopened, canceled is red, approved is green, completed is blue, and draft is orange. Okay, so you'll be able to see those. No record means it's not even there, so don't even worry about that one. Um, so I'm just kind of showing you guys that. Now, as far as if you guys are familiar with the NIFRS portion, If you click on this rotator light, that's going to take you directly into the report itself. If I click on the address, it is going to take me to what is called response mode. Okay. Response mode gives you the ability to see this from a map view using Google Maps, or if you use Esri Maps. Okay. So if you're using Esri, essentially to switch back and forth through your GIS data, you can do that up here. I can go through my Esri Maps and say, yeah, I just want to use that one instead of whatever. You can decide which one is your default, by the way. If you want Google Maps to be your default, you want Esri Map to be your default, however you want to go about it. So this is just doing an overlay of what the tax parcel data for this county has. Okay, so this is just showing you where your incident is at. Um, I'm going to go back to Google Maps because I think it's a little bit more user friendly than what our county has. So that being said, inside the response mode, you're able to look at a few things based off of what you're seeing is going to be reflected by these layers up top. These layers will show you essentially what you are seeing currently on the screen. Now, what I mean by that is when it says all nearest markers, what that means is if you have a business somewhere, okay, like this, all these businesses over here, it is showing all of their markers, every single one of them within a mile span, and I believe it's within 1.4 miles. I think is the way it is right now. So within that 1.4 miles, you are going to see as the crow flies all of these markers. Okay, so that comes into when you do your pre-plans. All these will start to populate based off of what you actually decide uh, to be shown on a map. Now, the difference between all nearest markers and emergency nearest markers are the ones that you set in the back office to be shown. So in other words, if I decide just to do the emergency nearest markers, you're going to see none of them are here because we haven't set any in the back office to show as emergent. Okay, so you can define which ones show by either, hey, emergency nearest markers, or I'm just going to show all of them. Okay, so that is what these layers will do. Nearest hydrants will obviously show your hydrants. Again, that is within a mile range. So again, I think that's still 1.4 as well, the way it's calculated. So it will show you the nearest hydrants to this response or this area, based off of where you're actually running to, which is the red point. Um, Nearest incidents. So if we're looking at nearest incidents, this is showing us that we have run an incident nearby here recently. Okay. It is within the last, I think it's within the last year, it is going to populate. So you will see if you've run an incident over here recently for something different. That's all that does. It just shows that marker that you have run one in this neighborhood or in this area recently. Roads defines the road names. Okay, then this is by Google Maps. So if you don't see a road name on there, especially newer construction areas, you are not going to see it show up. Okay, so that is how that works. Just give them some time to figure it out, or you can actually found out you can actually do a request into Google and they can put the road name in there. Points of interest is also based off of Google. So this is going to start putting in business name, historical areas, parks, lakes, streams, all that information. If you see a park nearby or a public place, it will define it based off of what Google has for it, or the business name of what they have as well. So you're starting to see those come in now, and we didn't have that before. Um, AVL, automatic vehicle location, that is just based off if you have AVL and you have it set up, we can actually show which vehicle, or based off of the vehicle, which one would be closer, okay, based off of this response. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have that set up, but we could if we did. Traffic cameras will show a traffic camera if you have them in your district, okay? Now I'm going to take some of these markers off because it's kind of difficult to see. I see one of them, but I just want to take them off anyway because it's just a little bit too much. Okay, so I'm in the good old state of North Carolina. Unfortunately, uh, we do offer a live feed of traffic cameras, but you'll see these little blue dots around with a camera on it. They do allow a live feed, but it's only if you want to pay for it. Okay, so we didn't pay for it, so you're going to get a snapshot of what it was at 2:05 p.m. So it's within every 10 to 15 minutes, it will actually show the process. It's very useless at that point for us because we're going to need it now. But that's the state of North Carolina for you. So that's where we're at. Some states allow live feed. They don't make you pay for it. I think Virginia is one of those, and some other states as well. I'm just showing you that you can access those cameras if you need to. You can put a U.S. national grid pattern on as well. So this is going to show your latitude and longitude. I've also told people if you are doing a grid search looking for someone, this is a very valuable tool to have because if I zoom in, that grid gets significantly more precise. So if I'm looking for certain areas, I can say, hey, let's print this off and let's go ahead. If I print this off, I can start marking these out. Okay, I've this square, this square, this square, this square. So you got a dementia patient, a kid that's gone missing, anything like that, you can go ahead and start grid searches and knock these things out. So that is the U.S. National Grid permits. If you issue permits to an area, and I'm going to take this grid off because it's a little bit too much. If you issue permits, you can see the permits that have been issued to this place. Okay, so if I want to figure out that, hey, let's say Superfleet Services manufactures dynamite, and there's going to be, they've got permits for manufacturing explosives. That's something I would want to know. Now, you're probably going to know that in general because of your district. But that being said, if you're responding to an area that is outside of your jurisdiction and you guys share data, we can actually share that in between agencies. Okay, so you're like, I'm going here. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they make, blah, blah, blah. That comes in favor for the department I work for because we run a lot of areas that are not ours. Okay, we just are contracted to run them. So we are just in a really good geographical area on the engine I'm currently on, and so they use us for pretty much everything. If you're on the other engines in the town, too bad, you're not going. But usually they'll use us. Comes in great for that information. There is up top, there's a temporary ruler. If you click on it, it drops it just like it did. If you're trying to figure out, like this hydrant is out of service, we know that with a black X through it. If we want to figure out how long our lay is going to be from the hydrant to where we're at currently, I'll take it and I'll start dropping it in. Okay, so let's say we're going to turn down here. Now let's move that back a little bit. Let's say we're going to turn right here. We're going to leave some room for the ladder. We're at 389 feet. This is to scale, so we're going to need four sections of LDH. Now, I say that, but also keep in mind that this is in a straight line. Depending on how your lays work for your LDH, it may not be this perfect. So if you've got a flat load and you're running this, chances are, even if you drive quick, it's not going to lay in a 100% straight line. So I add about 10 feet or so, 5 to 10 feet per 200 feet, just because of that. Because also when it charges, even though you're going to hook it up before it charges, it may not be exact. It's going to snake around and all that good stuff. So one of those things to keep in mind is if you're going to use this for LDH lays or what have you, lays in general, just keep in mind that about every 100 feet or so, you may want to add about 5 to 10 feet just in case. We've tried this. You try this on really long driveways for houses. It works pretty well. You don't just have to use it for your LDH. You could use this for figuring out the closest exposure. I'd say this one's probably pretty close with the 20 feet range or so. Yeah, we're about 30 feet. So that's 30 feet away from here. So if this house is fully involved, we're now worried about this house, okay? Because now we know it's 30 feet away. You're going to be able to see that anyway when you're there. It's just if you're curious as an incident commander how far this is, okay, or even for your investigation report purposes or whatever, you can use this to determine that. There's also a radius that you can do. So think of your hazmat event. So let's say I take this radius and I move this point and I'm going to drop it right on top of this house. And let's say, this place, let's pretend it's a manufacturing place and, they manufacture pool chemicals. Okay. Well, I'm going to look this up in my ERG book or in our chain link up here, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And it says I've got to evacuate everything within 300 feet. Okay. So I can try to guess this, and I can say, well, it's double, this. So I can say, well, this, I can drag it out. So these little white points, I can drag these out, and I'll say that looks about double, and we'll see. So it's 267 feet, so not quite 300. So what I can do is I can go up top, just type in 300 feet. Okay. If I hit that and I hit that check mark, it's going to do it immediately. It's going to say that's what 300 feet looks like in all directions. So if you evacuate this area, that's what it's going to look like. So you're going to evacuate this block and, the majority of this one as well, right? Just to be on the safe side. So everything over here is evacuated, right? So this is what that radius looks like. You can change that radius to do whatever you want as far as uh, the radius goes. This marker here is a Waze app. This is going to show you how to get to where you are going. If they're curious about it, based off of the point, it's going to take from where I'm at right now, and it's going to drop it. This works really good on a tablet. Okay, right now it's not understanding where my location is because I don't have that turned on my computer. All right, from the Waze app. Now, if I had it on Google Maps, it will tell me exactly where I'm going. So this is not based off, this is just based off of your location, where you are. It's telling me it's going to take me 10 minutes to get there. Okay. Keep in mind that Waze and Google Maps it's not always accurate, but it can take in traffic patterns as well. So if you've got, especially at 5 o'clock, this whole area over here is going to be slammed. There's going to be traffic all over the place. So if we've got that, we need to take that into consideration on that. But Google Maps sometimes can, and not always, but it can sometimes let you know that as far as, it'll increase your response time and show you, red areas, yellow areas as well, that where traffic is heavy. This little person in front of the phone, this is your caller. So if anyone and the event type and your first CAD notes, so if we're worried about this, if we need to contact them again, if your dispatch center actually dispatches the phone number with a name, you can actually use that and you can call them to see, hey, trying to find you, where you at, kind of thing. Or if they send you to the wrong address, because that never happens. All right. So the next thing is just a stopwatch. This is from your first due. So it's going to say, hey, this is your first response. PSAP time is when your alarm or when your CAD has actually come through and they've taken the call. The person has taken the call and they have dispatched it out on CAD. That is your PSAP time to your alarm time. Okay, so when they take it, and then your alarm time and route arrival, and then the last unit that clears the event. This little fire truck icon, or a ladder truck rather, these are all the units that are coming to you. All right, this is a medical call, so they've got 3 personnel on. I believe they run a squad, so they're running a squad 614 over there. If you had an apartment fire, if you had a commercial building fire, even a house fire, residential building fire, anything, you'd be able to see all the units that are coming to you when they got en route. Okay. As far as an incident command standpoint, that's giving you valuable time to say, all right, these are the units I got coming. I can go ahead and figure that out, write all that down, and start, making my command decisions, kind of thing, of what needs to be done based off of what they've already set place on the scene. Um, NERIS properties, what that's going to do, it's going to reference the closest property to this one that you do a pre-plan for. So let's say we were actually at Clemens mini warehouse. This is the place that we were actually going to as far as trying to access a pre-plan. If I click this, it will bring up a split screen and it will show you all of the information about it. The same thing will happen if you actually click on a property icon. So if I come in here and I put back all those NERIS markers, and let's see, NERIS properties as well. So these little houses that you've got, these are all your pre-plans. Okay, so if I click on this little house, it's going to say, by the way, here's all your pre-plans or your properties. If I click on this property number or click on any of these, it will take me to that same screen that we looked at earlier. So if I click on it, here it is. It's right there. All right. So if you can do it one of two ways, you can say, hey, here's all my nearest properties, or I can actually just go click on the house icon and it'll pull up all the pre-planned information about it. Weather, there is a weather app that is associated with this. So keep that in mind, especially for the hazmat people. You've got when we're looking at this, we got wind 4 miles per hour to the northeast. So if we're looking at that radius again for that hazmat response, when we drop that yellow circle down, we're looking at that radius. We need to, again, it's valuable information to understand. This is moving 4 miles per hour to the northeast, so we need to understand that that area right there. If I was in that situation, we're evacuating that area first. Okay. Um, Sometimes the web populates and it doesn't have wind direction. That's unfortunate, but very rarely does that actually happen. So just letting you know. This is for Community Works. If you guys have it, great. If not, don't worry about it. Basically, this is for property owners. You can go through and see what property owners have actually added. So if we've got solar on the roof or materials or batteries or anything like that, we can actually see all that information that's been added by the business owner to let us know what we're walking into. Usually we do that ourselves because they're not going to. That's just, the nature of the beast. But it is what it is on that. Lastly, you have a chain link. Now, what we give you in this chain link, we give you these two. So when we go to look at adding to the response mode links, is what this is called, you will not see these two because they are always with every single incident. So you have chemical database and toxic substances. So let's say we click on our Cameo data and I want to look at, we have a gasoline tanker turnover. Let's just say it's gasoline. And I click on 1203 for gasoline. It's going to take me to the Cameo chemical database. Okay. So this is for, combustible liquids, right? Ignitable combustible liquids. If I look at this ERG, it is going to take me to the orange page. It's going to say, hey, by the way, this is what you're looking at. Okay. So here's our orange pages in our ERG. If I want to look at it further, understand what we're actually up against further. If I click on this Cameo Chemical has 8 chemical data sheets. These are your SDSs or MSDSs. Um, it's going to take relatively things that are close to gasoline, so or something that you may have meant to do, like natural gas is in here, I think. Yeah, natural gasoline. There's also like things that are, have alkalines added to it, race fuels, avgas, anything like that. But if I click on, let's just say we're just concerned about gasoline, it's going to take me to the NFPA 704 diamond, okay, or your hazard diamond, okay? So it's going to start showing me that information. It's going to tell me what I'm working with here, reactivity alerts. It's going to tell, health hazards, reactivity profiles, all the way down to firefighting, non-fire response, PPE we should wear, down to the chemical composition of it, down to flash point, lower explosive limit, upper explosive limit, vapor pressure, pretty much anything you want to know about gasoline. Okay. Um, the toxic substances works very similarly. But if I click on this is more for an exposure. So let's say somebody gets exposed to, I don't know, arsenic. Okay. It is going to start telling me what I need to start looking out for. It's going to say, first off, this is what it is. Okay. Second off, here's the general information about it and how people can get exposed. Okay. Here's inhalation, dermal ingestion, other things. And then we've got standard guidelines. You've got physical property of it, incompatibilities, health effects. And now we're looking at acute exposures versus chronic. Okay. All the way down to pre-hospital management, hot zones, decon zones, warm zones, all that good stuff. So this is just setting up for that type of event, as well as if someone gets exposed, what are we going to look at? What do we need to do? What do we need to treat? Kind of thing. And that comes with every single one of those. The GIS thing, this is something that we have added. You won't see that on yours unless you've physically added it to yours. To get out of response mode, all you have to do is click exit and it will take you back to that map preview. Okay. And I can go back into my incident info. Oops, sorry. I can go back into my incident info. Don't know why it zoomed out so far, but I can go back into my incident info up here. If it will zoom back in, there we go. Okay. I can go through and do it that way. And that's pretty much it on that. There is, going back to the home page for your incidents. Let me go back real quick. So within this, there's a couple other options you have. You can go directly into the EPCR from here. If you have EPCR module, you can do the fire alarms if you have the fire alarm module or the investigation. When you are in NERIS, I will show you where that's at as well because you can go from there as well. You can print the PDF off of this. You can change a CAD number. So if you automatically generate an event because the CAD does not push the event through, all right. So we'll come over here and add a new incident. We can merge that incident once the CAD pushes it through by changing that CAD number. So if I come in here and physically change the CAD number, it is now going to reflect everything that's been updated in that initial CAD push. Okay. So once that CAD pushes through, it will update all that information. All right. As well as everything else that you've put in that report. So if you've come in there and you've put in, hey, this is an emergent response, this is, who was all there, all that good stuff, that's all going to come over as well. It's just merging the CAD data basically and putting it in one incident. That's it. So if I create a new one from scratch, I'll click this and fill out everything I need to know. Okay. Even all the way down to the apparatus times. And then I can go directly into the incident. When you are in NERIS, usually like the old school way, if you wanted to go into like when we're in NIFRS, you had the EPCR up here, fire alarm or investigation. When we are in NERIS, it has now been moved to these little three dots. So if I want to go into them, it's no longer up here. I'll actually have to go click on these three dots and go there. If you ever need to email this incident out because for whatever reason, let's say you need to email it out because there needs to be corrections on the report. You've already put why you reopened it, but now you're going to send it back to the person who wrote it, and you'll be able to email the incident out to them. So you can choose who you want to mail it to. So here's a staff list, and this is from every person in your department, or you can go off the crew list of who actually wrote this report. Okay. So you can go through and say, hey, Will McBride actually wrote this, so I'm going to send it to him. And I'm going to say, hey, fix your narrative concerning spelling or whatever. Okay. And I can just hit send. It's going to send him an email and it's going to come with all of this. It's going to say, hey, here's your CAD number, here's your incident number, here's this, fix your narrative. And that's how that all works together. Now, as far as the rest of this information works together, your internal incident number, that is up to you. Some people have their own internal incident numbers. Okay. They like to keep up with those incidents. And I'm going to get out of this one because this one's in completed and I want to look at a draft mode because I can actually go through and edit it and you'll be able to see instead of having to go through. Let's see. Just bear with me for a second here. So your internal incident number is up to you. Okay, we have it match the CAD number. We can do whatever. All right, you can make your own incident numbers. You can do whatever you want with that. Okay. Obviously, station shift. All station will come over from your CAD. Shift will come over from your roster. Okay, depending on that, what that is, you're able to fill out your population density and the rest of this. Now, previously, aid given or received, you had a lot of options. Okay. Right now, you only have two. All right, so NERIS allows you to have two. Now, you can iron those out further in your response tab, and we'll get to that later. But let's say we had aid received. That opens a whole different spot in your response tab, and we'll look at that in a little bit. You're able to talk about if it's emergent or not, and if it's an FSRS incident or not. One new thing that was added, well, it's not new, we just moved it. There was a little person sitting in front of a computer screen somewhere up here to the right. It has now been brought here. Okay, that was your CAD files. If I look at this, we can see everything we need to know. Okay, as far as what our CAD has pushed. So here's all our CAD notes. Here's all the details for times, all the apparatuses responding, all that good stuff. That is all in here. Okay. Your log, however, will show you anything and everything that has been changed. It's showing you that I viewed this incident and Austin viewed it earlier. Scott viewed it earlier. If anything has been changed, they changed the number earlier or what have you, it will tell you
what the old value was and the new value. If nothing was in the old value, if the field was blank, it won't have anything. It will just show you the new one. If I go over here, it's going to show you also like this is some of the information that got pushed. It tells you CAD pushed this information over and so forth. So if I change anything, it will say that who did it, at what time, and what they changed. Okay. So that's what that log does. There's also a log for your narrative, and we'll get to that later. Something new for NERIS is your incident types. Okay. Previously in NIFRS, we were only able to have one incident type. For NERIS, you can have three. It says add up to three applicable incident types. Now, I have asked this question so far. I've only gotten one suitable answer from the federal government. So, what happens if we have four incidents? Okay, because this can also be, hey, this was the perfect situation that led to the next situation, which led to the next. So I could come in here and say, hey, we had a outside fire. It's construction waste. Let's say that outside fire came over to a vehicle fire. Okay, so that was an exposure that caught that vehicle on fire, and now that vehicle that was outside is now impinging damage on a structure. So let's say it was a garbage fire, and then that turned into a structure fire, and we had structural involvement. So I can have three. That's fine. But what happens if we have four? Let's say a grass fire started the construction fire, construction waste, which got the car, which got the house. The answer, pick that are the most relevant. To me, all four were relevant, but to them, pick the three that make the most sense, is what I've been told. Okay. One of these has got to be marked as the primary incident that you responded to. So there are two schools of thought on this. Either A, which you originally were sent on. So if we were sent on a power line down, which started a grass fire, which started a car fire, which started a house fire, you can say, hey, we were originally sent on a power line down. Or whatever the most significant piece of that was, right? So for me, I'm thinking that the house fire or whatever fire it was the most significant, right? That's what started getting into our property loss, right? Or the vehicle fire or what have you. So you have to come over here and select which one it was. So I'll say the structure fire was the one that I believe was the most common. So once I select that, it moves it to the top and it says, okay, that's the primary incident that this ended up causing. Okay, or this was the climax, if you will, of the event was the structure fire. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. So if you have any questions on it, um, again, I've asked the questions, and from what I've been told, hey, you just include the rest of it in your narrative, okay, or in the investigation module if you have it. All right, if you don't have it, then you'll just write it in narrative. Some new aspects too to NERIS. Medical was in here, right? Previously, we had a 321, right? Or if it was a motor vehicle accident that did cause injuries, those were our choices, right? Now they are actually capturing data for a medical event. So if I click on medical, they want to know what medical event were you actually dispatched on. There's illnesses, there's injury and trauma, okay, and other. There's your three options with that. Um, does that mean you put HIPAA information in here? No. That's just they just want to know what you were actually on. That's it. They're just trying to do it for their report purposes. Um, and the rest of it is pretty commonplace, non-emergency, public services, rescue. That's a new one. If it's a motor vehicle accident where you actually had to extricate someone, you can select that now and say, hey, this was actually extrication, even though that was a NIFRS code as well, more so in the actions taken. But yeah, that's essentially it. You can select certain things. Going through the rest of this, so let's say you did rescue someone from a vehicle or from a house or from anything else. Say you got a grab. So did any casualty injuries or death or rescues occur to firefighters during this event? Well, no, not firefighters per se, but let's say it was a civilian. If we say that, did any casualties or injuries or death or rescues occur? As soon as I hit yes for any of these, for either of these two, you will see casualties and rescues comes up. Okay, so this is a new tab that NERIS is actually trying to capture data for. So they want to know that if you do this for a firefighter, that is fine as well. I will tell you that they want to start knowing about Maydays and if we're called. Okay. Um, I've gotten into that discussion with, I think there's a lot of bad scars and where we're afraid to call Maydays. So, um, I'm trying to preach, call them if you think you need it. You can always cancel it, right? Um, Another new thing is this one. It says, did the incident involve any emerging hazards? This is for batteries, so lithium batteries, electrical situations, generators, or corrugated steel tubing. Okay. If I hit yes, that also opens up an emerging hazards tab, and we'll go through that. You're able to talk about if any animals are rescued or not, and then you are able to select any incident modifiers. These do not populate another tab up top. This is purely stating if you had an incident. We had one not too long ago. I'm in North Carolina, about an hour from me to the west. We had one of the worst floods we have ever seen in the mountains. So if we say that, hey, this is now a federal declared disaster whenever it was all said and done. So if we send somebody on deployment or whatever, and we're doing that, or we're actually in that area, we're in a federal declared disaster. These are just modifiers. You can select as many as you want. Say, hey, it was federal, it was state, it was, whatever, everything, right? So it's just a way to pull the incident back out and to let them know, hey, by the way, this is what that was. If you are trying to receive funding for this because you sent people off and everything else and you needed proof, you can say, hey, this is a state declared disaster, or, it's county or local or state or federal or whatever. You can pull those out and, show them that, hey, these are the incidents that we were actually a part of. Actions and tactics. So in NIFRS, you could only select 3 for the main incident, and you could select 4 for the personnel in the response tab. The sky is now the limit. Okay. Whatever happened on this incident, you can select. So if I say, hey, we notified other agencies, we established incident control, we provided, light, we provided special equipment, we, came through, we did, let's see, structure fire. Let's look at structure. We did exterior, interior attack. We had a forced entry to get in, anything like that. So you're seeing all these things that we did for this one incident. You can keep going if you want to. There's nothing limiting the actions taken. And so you're able to actually classify everything that happened on that event. Address location. So something that is new as well is our exposures. If you remember previously in NIFRS, if you had an exposure, it generated an entirely new report. That is no longer. We just add it to this report itself, and you're able to, hey, this, whatever happened in the narrative, and we'll go through an exposure as well. But first, I want to talk about the location details. This location info is for the incident that you were dispatched to. This is the main incident. This is not the exposure. Okay, this is going to say, hey, where were you dispatched to? What's the city? What's the street? What's the zip code? All that good information. You can put the district in as well. That's required now, and so forth. Okay, this is just the location that you were sent to. Your exposures. If I add one, I can go through and say, okay, first off, this is the internal use. This is for you guys as the department. External is more for NERIS and so forth. It's all for NERIS, but essentially, internal is for basically for your records about was there structural damage or not. Okay, moderate, minor, major. Those are our 3 choices now, or no damage. So technically 4. But let's say, hey, it was major or whatever, or let's say moderate. Okay, and then we can say exposure, apartment, or suite number if applicable. Okay. We can also define the location type below for this. We can do the same for the location info. We can define the location for this as well. And you can go through and do the location as far as, hey, what's the type, the subtype. We'll get into that in just a second. I wanted to show you the map as well. So let's say it's not actually tied to an address. but it's an exposure. Let's say it's like the and there's some sort of building off there that's been there since 1897 or whatever, some sort of tobacco shed or something like that out there. If I look at this map, I don't have to actually go through and say it's an address anymore. Okay, so this exposure, let's say it was over here in the woods and it's actually not tied to an address number. If I click right here and go through and I hit edit location and I click right here and I want to drop that point, it's saying, okay, we did find an address for this, just so you know, but we're going to leave this point here too. Okay. So it's saying, by the way, if it doesn't have an address, it won't say that. But if you click on that, it says, by the way, we found one. And if it doesn't find one, it'll say, we don't have an address. Cool. That's fine. And essentially, you're just dropping the point of where the exposure was. That is acceptable to them. Okay. That is an acceptable point of an exposure. Okay. You can show that on the map. You can do the same thing in the location information. You can show this on a map and say the same thing. Okay. This is where it's at right now. I can move it if I want to and say, I don't want it there. I want it somewhere else. I can actually move that location if I want to based off of where it is. Okay. You can add as many exposures as you want. Going back to exposures, again, the internal information is for you guys, more for your fire department of, hey, was there actual flame damage, all that good stuff. Of course, they're going to get that too. But you can go through and say, hey, what is it that we were dealing with? Okay. Here's a location type. And so this works for your main location information and your exposures. Okay. Location type, there is a main type now and there is a subtype. Remember, before we had all those listed NIFRS codes. No longer do we do that. We say, hey, this was a residential area. Okay, then what was it? It's going to say, hey, it's an attached single family dwelling. Was it a detached single family dwelling? Was it multi-purpose? What was it? Temporary lodging, unhoused temporary shelter. What was it? Okay. So I could say, hey, this was, let's say it's detached single family dwelling. It wasn't attached to anything else. Okay. Location and use, yes, it was. Was it vacant? Um, you know, no. So if it's in use, you don't have to put anything in the vacancy reason. Okay. And that's essentially it. And then were people present? Yes, no, all that good stuff. Location used as intended and so forth. So it goes for every single one of these that you put in here. That's all this is. You're just ironing it out. So I can also do the same for this location and so forth. Okay. That's all that is. Any people, number of people that were displaced if they were and so forth. Involved entities. So I can actually, if this was a protected property. So what do I mean by that? So right here where it says property ID, if you have one that is associated with this address, it is going to automatically pull up the pre-plan. So let's say this is Zip's Car Wash. Okay. This is the one that we want as our protected property. I'm like, yep, this is the one we're doing. This is where it's at, blah, blah. Okay. So property ID is in here now. Moving down to involved entities, I can add this now I can do the same as the caller. I can do same as the incident. I can talk about who was there, who I saw, who was actually, at the event, who saw it, and I can what the involvement type was. Keep in mind, you can change this in the back office of the involvement type. We just give you a list of what most, departments use, what we thought would be a good example. Some of this is obviously people just cute too, because it's funny to put things in here and so forth. So, because it's a test database and it's not going anywhere. So we can go through and put that information in there and add them in. You can also do a name search. And so we can do this from the incident involved entities, or we can do it from our property contacts and hit search. This is going to go in and say, hey, by the way, based off of what you have in your protected property, this is, the contacts that you would have. If I hit search and they come up, I can select every single one of them and bring them in and literally hit close and it'll just drop them all in there. Okay. If not, you'll just have to build them out and so forth. Motor vehicle crash / vehicle information. So it doesn't have to be a motor vehicle crash. You can still capture all the vehicle information on this. Okay, if I hit add, I can come through and say what's the vehicle type, make, model year, VIN number, license information of the person. Then I can get into accident information as well and talk about if airbags were deployed and all that good stuff. You could do that on NIFR stuff, but essentially this is more, included in the NERIS portion of stuff.
and so forth. If this is a vehicle fire, we'll get into that inside the fire tab. It is not as concrete as it used to be. So I'll just give you that. Custom fields, if you have custom fields, they'll be here. You can fill that out. And now you have two narratives. This is your incident narrative, and this is your obstacle narrative. Okay. What's the difference? Well, NERIS has both. Do you have to do both? No. You can do it all in one incident narrative if you want to. Think of your obstacles, right? So, you know, active shooter, think of, forcible entry required, bars blocking windows, anything, right? Any obstacle that prevented you guys from getting someone out immediately or making the fire control process immediately or what have you. You're able to go through and define that further. Okay. Um, Either way you want to do it, you can. If you're like, hey, I'm just going to write an incident and then I'm going to kind of talk about this more in depth for my obstacles, whatever. For those in prevention, even going through and putting some of the information out, hey, it was hard to track down property information or whatever because it was vacant, all that good information, you can put that as well. Okay. So that is up to you. You can also use the investigation module if you don't want to put any of that information in here, because remember, this is a public record. Authorization. So authorization used to be in a tab by itself up top. It is all here now. You do not have to put the report completed date. Okay. Because when you hit complete, it will automatically fill that in for. All right. You can if you want to, but I've just given you that option. Also, if you're requesting a review on this, you can do that. It will add that to review requested. It's a field that you can search by. Member making report and officer in charge. You can fill these out individually, but if I select this one and I go and select a member, it is going to populate them for both. So if I just say, hey, this was Baker that did it, it's going to put him as both. Okay. Or so forth. That's funny. Put him as a cadet. Anyways, QC. So remember, I told you the statuses that we have: draft completed, approved, reopened, canceled, right? Those are the ones we have. If you want to make your own statuses, you can do that. Those of you who are QCing, you can come in and say, hey, I completed it. Here's the date. Here's who did it. That's me. Any remarks you want to add to this? Station number is wrong or whatever. Okay. QC status, I can make my own. I can say, hey, I admin QC, or, hey, this fixing narrative. I need you to fix your narrative. Okay. Or whatever. Okay. Whatever status you want to make, you can make that. Okay. You can search for that. These are filterable fields. Okay. So just letting you know if you want to add to it. Response. So getting onto the response tab, this is going to be your dispatch summary and your incident summary calculated automatically. So what this is saying is this is the time that the dispatch center got the call. If they stamp these times, most likely they'll just take the processing time or the time they alarmed it. Okay. They may be the same, just so you know. Essentially, it's just breaking down from the time they took the call, if they stamped these times, to the time they sent the alarm out to you as a department. These are the averages, or not averages, but the automatically calculated ones of who was earliest, the earliest dispatch, who was en route first. This is your first due, most likely, of en route and arrival versus the last unit cleared. NERIS does have what is called tactical timestamps now. Okay. What this means is if you are stamping things from your CAD for water on fire times, they've added in a few different ones that you can now capture for your department if you so wish. If you want to do this and your CAD center stamps it, all we need to know is how are they stamping it? Okay. So what I mean by that is if they put time extrication completed time, if they write it out like that and you in the CAD and they stamp it and that's how we're pulling that out, that's fine. Or if it just says TEC, or if it says extrication time or anything, we just need to know what it is so we can reference it and pull it out. Okay. There's all kinds of ones in here now for fire knockdown times to under control and to time suppression was completed. Okay, so the time your fire control team got the whole suppression aspect down pat, fires out, extension's done, all that other stuff. Or they've checked for extension and so forth. Apparatus information. So inside your apparatus information, this is just for you can decide which ones you want to do actions for. Obviously, you do not do them for your mutual aid. That is why these are in parentheses and they say mutual. You're not responsible for putting incident actions for anyone. You can add personnel to them if you want to, basically to say how many personnel came with them. So for instance, for 614, I can come in here and say, I'm going to add in 2 people. Okay. Let's say, oh, there was only 2 people on the squad. I'll hit add. There they are. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter like MA personnel too. It's just basically all that's saying is mutual aid personnel. Okay. The arrival times and so forth, you can put in there. That will obviously come over from the CAD if it's in there. Okay, for whatever reason it wasn't in this one. But if all that information that is with this apparatus will transfer to those people as well. Okay, you can come through and talk about what the response type was. Okay, if you have volunteers come in or anything like that. Also, personnel actions you can add for them. Um, if they both did the same thing, you do not have to fill them out individually. You can just hit add to all personnel, and I can come in here and say what exactly they did. Remember, I told you the actions earlier. Sky's the limit. Used to only be able to do 4 here. Now you can do as many as you want. Okay. So again, whatever they did, I can hit apply. They've got it now. It added it to both people. I'm done. Okay. So whatever actions were taken, you can put that for your mutual aid or your own apparatus. There's also narratives. So you can write an apparatus narrative. Okay. So whoever is on the apparatus, if you don't want to, so if everybody wants to put their 2 cents in on the incident of what actually occurred, they can write their own narrative versus the first due apparatus, which would actually do the incident narrative and the incident info. Okay. So they can come in here and type in their narrative. They can timestamp it, or they could even generate it. So what generating is going to do is going to say, hey, by the way, this is everything that happened based off of what we have for actions taken, times they got there, and these are all the people. Okay, that's what generate's going to do. What you can do if you want to include all their information inside a narrative, inside the main narrative, I can go back to incident info. 214 was the one that wrote it. I can now come back down and say, I'm going to include this in my main narrative. I'm going to copy this over from 214 and it drops their stuff in. Okay. So that is how you can put everything in one report if you want to. You can also keep it in the apparatus information as well. If they have written a narrative, you will see it as so. You'll have the uppercase A and lowercase. If you need to update anything on this, you can edit this and go forth and do, essentially talk about dispatch time, staging time, cancel time. Here's your apparatus actions and any response delays you may have. So apparatus actions are the same as basically personnel. Okay. I don't know how an apparatus can do forcible entry, but well, yeah, I do, but we won't go there. So remember, if your mutual aid's here and you don't want to worry about your mutual aid, just hit this. These are the ones you're responsible for. Okay. Unless you want to include the number of personnel that we're riding. Okay. That will help you out as far as your ISO goes or PIL or whatever you guys are using. You can delete things out of here. I would not delete your mutual aid out because again, this is showing who was there. I talked about that you can, if we said mutual aid was received or given, you're able to talk about those mutual aid agencies further here. Okay, so if I add this in here, all right, and let's say Forsyth County Fire Department showed up, okay, that's our mutual aid. I can now define it further. Mutual automatic aid was given, acting as another entity, automatic aid in lieu of primary entity, or acting automatic aid support of primary entity. So you're able to go through and define those out further, okay? There's also,
FTID numbers and number of aid provided, you can also calculate it here instead of going up here and doing it per apparatus. You can just say, well, they gave us 6 people. So I can go through and add that in there. There's also other agencies, like if social services showed up, or housing services, or animal services, or law enforcement, you can also click these little buttons too to say that they showed up as well. Okay. Rehab. Rehab is a new portion of NERIS. Some of you may see it, some of you may not. It is included with NERIS. So if you do not see it, let us know. We will open it for you. Okay. So rehab, if you are going to rehab, okay, it's going to ask you who's the name of the person. Okay, you're able to select this from your personnel. Okay. What's the unit number they were tied to, rehab time. If you have people added into these already, they're going to populate already. So if you have people on these apparatuses on your department, your when you add them in here, their name will already be able to be selected from here. Okay, that's where these names come from, and their unit that they were tied to and everything. The provider, you can say who was actually in rehab providing medical support or medical attention rather. When did they check in? And then the status of that person. So were they released? Were they sent to rest? Were they transported? Okay. Their vital signs, and then, their skin color and a narrative if you want to write a narrative for it. Okay. That is there as well. So that's rehab. It's pretty commonplace. You just add whoever went to rehab, and you can add as many people as you want. PPE used. This came from the unfortunate event that was COVID. Okay. Essentially, you're able to capture PPE that was used on an event. If I add in people, you can say what they were wearing. It is a CYA thing. Let's say they got exposed to bloodborne pathogens, and they were wearing their gloves and they got it on their hands. It's like, well, you were wearing your gloves, so you should be okay, right? So, um, that's one of those things that you can capture, just show it. There is also the ability to capture that information in a casualty report as well. If you are doing an EPCR, you can capture it in there. Okay. If you don't want it to be public record, you can capture it in there unless it was a firefighter injury. Okay. If they were actually exposed to something and they actually have the potential to get it, I would add it in both, just to kind of cover your basis. Um, Fire tab. All right. Two choices here. Primary nature of the fire, if there was a fire. Okay. Structure fire, outside fire. You do not see vehicle, right? This is one of the biggest gripes I had with this, because a vehicle is considered an outside fire. We understand that unless it's in a structure, right? Then it's a structure fire. Then it's a vehicle fire inside of a structure. Okay. Now, the way this works is if you say this is a structure fire, there's a spot that says, hey, here's your fire condition on arrival, structural damage, story of origin, okay? Type of investigation needed, and cause of the structure fire. This is pretty direct to the point. You're able to determine the majority of it, okay, right here. Now, if this is an outside fire and or a vehicle fire, it is going to ask you only the cause. It does not ask you the origin. I don't know why. I've asked. There is no answer. So that being said, if you guys are investigating this, basically the cause of the outside fire would be equipment and vehicle use. Okay. And then as far as the rest of it goes, you can iron that out in your investigation module if you have it. If not, you can include it in your incident narrative. Okay. That's what I've been told to do essentially from this. So it's just letting you guys know that you are able to define more aspects of this. If I say it's a structure fire and I say, did fire extend? And I say yes, it's going to want to know structural damage, story of origin, all the other stuff. This stuff is now required, okay, by NERIS. Did you have to do an investigation? If so, was it by local? Was it by outside fire agency? Was it by the state fire marshal? Who was it? Okay. Cause of structure fire, you're able to talk about that as well. Was it incendiary, open flame, operating equipment, whatever, right? If I say it's operating equipment, then we'll say, hey, the vehicle fire started the structure fire, and then we're in the playing the game of Clue, right? Colonel Mustard in the library with a candlestick kind of thing. Estimated dollar value losses, pre-incident values of the property will always be on the left. What you lost is on the right. Um, let's see. Emerging hazards. I told you this is new. This is more for them to start tracking things on batteries, vehicle batteries, just batteries in general. So if you have lithium batteries, or it's just a battery in general, you can add that in here now. So it's saying batteries, devices, stored energy systems involved. If I add this in here, let's say, well, it's an energy storage system. Okay, so what does that even mean? Or a consumer product? What does this mean? Was this a power bank? Was it a toy? What is it? If I say this is a energy storage system, then I'm going to say it's a battery. Okay. Was the battery or the energy storage system a target or the source? Meaning, did this start the fire? This was the source of the fire, or was this in the area and it happened to be, you know, part of the fire, but it was not the source of the ignition? Basically, it's just a target or unknown. Okay. Suppression approach that you took to it. This is the getting into the whole, are we going to put it in a dumpster full of water? Or are we putting dirt over it? Do we bury it? What are we doing? Kind of thing. Was there reignition? Yes. You can say yes or no. If it's lithium, I can guarantee you there's going to be reignition. If it's been more than 30 days or less than 30 days, it's probably going to reignite if it's failed. Other aspects, was power generator hardware involved? If photovoltaics were involved with that, with what was surrounding it, was this, a tile power generator? Was it film power generator? Was panel water heating, panel power generator? What was around it to make it go up? Wind turbine, anything like that, you can select those as well, or not. And was it the source or the target? This one I thought was pretty interesting is because some of the stuff we're dealing with now, which is the corrugated steel tubing. Um, if say this was suspected in ignition, it is going to want to know two things. Was a storm around? Was lightning suspected cause of the ignition? Okay, yes or no. And then lastly, was it grounded? Yes or no. Sometimes we don't have the ability to determine that unless it's tested, right? But you can guess. Sometimes it's, probably depending on how everything went, I would say probably not, or whatever, right? Or just unknown because we're not certain on if it was or not. Okay. This helps with, those in prevention and so forth. Alarms. Getting into alarms. These aspects are NERIS specific as well. These are not like number of alarms for the actual fire or anything like that. It's not a 2 or 3 alarm fire. This is more for, are we talking about, were smoke detectors there, fire alarms there, other alarms? If you select present for any of this, it's gonna want you to say, hey, were they working or tested? What was the type of it? Offers even all the way down to cooking suppression. Was it present? Was this what type of cooking suppression was this commercial hood system? What was it? Okay. Was it residential hood? Temperature limiting stove burner? What was it? Okay. So that's all this is. It's just kind of wanting to go through and see if they were there, if they operated as they were supposed to, and if they failed. Okay. That's basically it on that. Um, Casualties and rescues. So if a rescue occurred, civilian rescue, that is also for extrication purposes. You can go through and add that in here and talk about what happened. Okay. Rescue presence known, rescue type, what was the type of rescue, firefighter rescued them, they self-rescued, fire assisted, casualty details, were they fatal, was it non-fatal, uninjured, and then demographic information. Because it is a aspect of HIPAA and this is public record, we do not put their name. Okay. Because that gets into now we're talking about HIPAA protected stuff. Okay. So that's how that works. Now for the firefighter, the difference is going to be, or rescue personnel, the difference is going to be, was a mayday called? Yes or no?
They want to know that from now on. Rescue type, same aspect. Conditions that impacted the rescue. It goes in a little bit more detail. Okay, was there a structural collapse? What were we dealing with? Okay, heaven forbid that ever happens. But if it does, um, we can kind of record it and go back and look at what happened. Okay. If you guys are using payroll, um, you can do so through here in the payroll tab. I don't know why. I wonder if I removed it as the primary incident type. Let's see. No, we still have one. So I'm not sure. Payroll has not been set up on this one. Well, yeah, it has. It just was being stupid. Um, you can add in the personnel for the payroll. It will automatically add them in there. If you do that, you can refresh their hours or bulk update people and so forth. That's basically, it's just going to show you what you've built out as payroll types and then payroll profiles. It will show based off of that and what their actual time is and points and all that good stuff if you're using that. Lastly, we have map preview. Map preview again was that response mode. We've been through that, but I just wanted to show you where it's at. You can go back into response mode by clicking on it, or you can hit X, exit out, and you're done. Um, Guys, if remember, and this was just the end user side, we're going to go into the back office next. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in that Q&A section, okay? And I'll answer them as they come up or at the very end, most likely at the very end since we're on the final stretch here. Um, okay, so lastly, what we have here is going to be your back office. So inside of this, you're going to see two types of settings. We have NIFRS and we have NERIS. Don't worry about that unless you guys are transferring from one to the other. It's fine. Either way, it'll all work together. You'll be able to see how you can merge some of the information together. NERIS settings, there are custom NERIS lists. So this is new, not the list part, but what you can do with the list. Okay. So essentially, as we go through this and we look at, let's say we want to look at actions taken in the incident, you can hide these. If you don't want these to be shown, okay, you've got value 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to show you each value of the actions that were taken. Okay, you can go through and you can say, hey, I want to hide this. You can also type in your own reasons for the values. Now, when it goes to them, they are only going to see the values that they originally put in here. But if you want to create your own value for, hey, no incident found, no action, we'll say UL, unable to locate. Okay. We could put that in as a value 3, or we could hide some of these that we're just not going to do. It's not something we do as a department. You can hide some of these. Okay. That goes for anything in here. So nature of aid provided, you can hide some of these as well. Okay. Um, so just letting you know on top of that, you are able to go through and change some of that stuff and submit it for your list. Nearest custom fields, if you want to build a field like we have here, if it's a text field and I click on this, I have the ability to build out values. So if I come over here and I look at describe incident circumstances and I wanted to build a list for something and put, yes, there were circumstances or no, there was not. Okay. I can come in and hit no, I'll hit submit. And now they've got a drop down list that they can select from. Okay. And that's based off of text. You can do it off a number, decimal, date and time, whatever you want to do. But if you want to build a list, you can. You do not have to. They can still manually type. I'm just showing what these can do. If you want to build one of these, all you have to do is scroll down and go to a blank one. And then you are able to click on this one and start filling it out. Okay. If you don't have any, then the top one will be blank and so forth. If it's active, all you have to do is hit add. It will immediately put it in use. If you don't want to use it anymore, you can come over here and say, no, we're not using that. We're done. It's inactive now. Okay. So it will change it from in use to not active at that point. Incident type configuration. So this is also a list. You can find this inside your list. The only difference is skip completed status. I will tell you, I don't know anybody who uses this, what skip completed status does. So it changes it from completed
it automatically moves the incident to approved. So if somebody fills out, the report writer fills it out, and they're like, "Yep, I'm done. We're good." It automatically moves it to approved, which means it's going to NERIS. I don't know anybody who does that except for canceling routes, okay, or no incident basically, or you were canceled during response. But even then, people still want to see narratives and what's being sent to the federal government. So I don't know anybody who does this, but you can use it if you want to. If you guys do not worry about that kind of stuff, then you can go through and do that. Just showing you what that does. There is incident custom required fields. If you want to make something, and I think this is NIFRS. Let's see, it was. I'm sorry, yeah, I skipped over it. So we'll just go in line. NERIS units. So what these are, if you do not see NERIS API IDs, you need to reach out to your project manager, okay, inside your back office. The way it works is you first have to get your station IDs before you can come and get a NERIS ID for an apparatus, okay? The reason why is because they want to know where it is going to be assigned. Like this one, it says station 10 through 99. Okay. And then you can go through and say, hey, this is, that NERIS is attached to station 14 or whatever. They have station 10 and 14, I think. So you can go ahead and say, what is that going to be? Okay. You'll have to register them all with NERIS, but first you need to do your stations. If you don't see these, reach out to the project manager and figure out what the next step is. There is a process for it. So I don't want to say like go ahead and do it because I don't know where you guys are at with that. But anyways, um, NERIS custom required fields, same thing as NIFRS. Okay, you can go through and say what is required, what is not. Okay, if you want to come in here and you want to say, hey, mutual aid is something that we have to do. For instance, it says, involved entities. I can come in here and say what field. I could come in here and make their last name, something that is required. I can then assert a role. There are only two, warnings or errors. Remember, error has to be completed, warning does not. You can then say, is it going to be, only on fire incidents, EMS, if it's on canceled calls, false alarms, hazmat, what is it going to be? Okay. So you're able to just decide those two. If you don't put anything in here, it's required on all of it. Okay. That is it for that. Let's look at validation rules. These are if-then statements. So let's say if you run a structure fire, then you must put 3 actions taken. Okay. That's kind of how we would build that out. If we would start with incident fields and NERIS, and we would say, hey, if this is like for this one, fill this out, FSRS incident. So basically, if this is a NERIS incident type 1 primary equals fire, then you have to fill out this field. Okay. So that's an if-then statement. If you guys want to try this on your own, feel free to do so. If you can't make it work, let us know. We'll fix it. It's no big deal. We do that all the time. Or you can just tell us what you want and we'll do it anyway. NERIS default values. So this is what is going to be on every report already defaulted. Like this one, aid given or received defaults to none. Every incident. Okay, emergency or non-emergent, it defaults to emergency. Number of people displaced, zeros, incident info, address, state, North Carolina is always here because very rarely are we going to default out of that unless we're on deployment. Okay. Um, and I would imagine it'd be the same for their department for this test database. Let's see. NERIS hidden field. So if you want to hide something, okay, or if you want to hide whatever it is, you will be able to see it here. Okay, this will show you a list of everything that has been hidden. Okay, that also includes if you hide it from that NERIS list that we were looking at. So that will now drop down into that field. Mutual aid agencies will do this first, and then we will look at adding in units. Okay. So I work for Kernersville. I'm gonna delete the record out for Kernersville. I think I just clicked the right one. If not, it's no big deal. It's a database. So let's say I'm trying to find Kernersville. Okay, I want to add that to this current list. So I'm currently on my current list. If I want to add it master agency list, which is pretty much every department out there. Okay, so I can go in here and search for Kernersville. Okay, so if I type in Kernersville and I hit search, it's going to try to pull it up. It's going to be like, which one is it? Well, it's this one. It's on 316 West. Well, actually, it's not. We changed the address, but that's okay for our headquarters anyway. So we can go through here and say, all right, that's fine. We're going to add this one in here. If I go back to my current list, it is only going to show Kernersville because I've got that in here still. If I delete that out and hit search again, it will show you all of them. Okay. So you can add those in there. So you want to add in your mutual aid IDs because when you do that, you're able to go through and start adding in the apparatuses that correspond with those. So if I know that, truck 11 is going to respond on our fire incidences, that's coming from Louisville, I can select that from all those departments that I have, okay, in that current list. And I can say, what's the primary use? It's only going to be for fires or for rescues or other or whatever. And then what is it? It's a truck or aerial, and the number of people, they're defaulted 2 people to be on that apparatus. So you can default the number of people that would be on that apparatus by minimum standards. So they're required to have 2 people on that ladder at all times. Okay. We're required to have 4, on the engine, we have to have 3, whatever. So if one of our units is coming, then you're getting at least 3 guys on an engine, 4 on a ladder, or anything like that. So you can go ahead and predetermine that stuff so you don't have to iron that out um, when it comes to the response tab. CAT event types, this is something that you can reference. So basically, and it all depends on how your CAD system writes it out. So if this is code, let's say FDPS for, you know, one fire department public service. Okay. That's what the actual code is for CAD. And then the description that they have is, public FD public service. And then the incident type for NIFRs is this, but the NERIS incident type would be this. So basically what you're doing, you're predetermining in the report what the NERIS incident type was. Public services, this usually works out pretty well. But the problem that we'll have is like fires, right? You may be dispatched on a fire, but chances are it's probably just an odor investigation or it's an overheated outlet or something like that, right? So unless you go to the east side, which it's always on fire, which when we're going there, it's going to be burning. But anyways, that being said, you can go through and predetermine certain incidences if you want to. You do not have to do that. I'll caution you on that one because it's not always what it turns out to be, right? And so they may have to go back in and change it and all that good stuff. Um, QC statuses, like we saw, you can make your own, like admin QC3, fixed narrative. You had that one for the second one. You know, approved, whatever, right? You make your own. So that's how that works, and then you can use it later. Response mode links. So I told you it has to have a URL and a description. You can make the description whatever you want. You just have to copy and paste the URL or website link in here in order to use it. Okay. If it has a login parameter, you just have to let us know what those are, and we can actually predetermine that and overlay it in. So you'll be able to see that as a response mode link. That also goes for maps. Involved entity types. So like I said, when you're looking at people, adding in people to a report for what they were, if they were a bystander, if they were just, maintenance guy, if they were a security person, whatever, you can add people in here or feel free to remove these, make your own. It doesn't really matter. We just gave you a list of what we usually run into. Fire alarm reasons for activation. These are within the fire alarm, so it will ask you why did it activate? I do not see steam. That would be a good one. Steam from a shower or from hot water, whatever, right? That would be a good one. Any reason you want to put in there, you can put that in there. It does go to NERIS, but they'll just see it for whatever you put in there. And then lastly, we have our PPE items. Okay, this is for if you want to say that you wore PPE. Again, the PPE in the casualties is different than this. Okay, this is different. So you're able to talk about inside that, like we're wearing full structural turnout gear, right? We can put that in on an individual. So this is just for the incident as a whole. It's like, hey, I got exposed to, Hep B or something like that. It's like, okay, well, bloodborne pathogen. So you wear any gloves? Yeah. All right, I'll put it in the report, but you should be fine. Okay, that kind of thing. So if anybody has any questions, guys, that's all I've got. Feel free to use that QA section and I'll go through and answer them. Other than that, that's all I got. And I hope you guys have a great day.